Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Ghosts and Spirits of the Week video. I debated whether to add this entry on the Cryptids and Monsters side because it is very close to being linked to one of my favorite cryptids of all. Those of you that have seen my channel for years now know that the Genius Loki is one of my favorite ones there. This one mimics it in so many ways, if but for the fact that the Genius Loki is more like a corporal entity, something that is just not there at all, while this one truly mimics more along the lines of a spirit. So that's why I wanted to go ahead and include it here, but make it an of the week to give it a special status of some kind. And this is a very fascinating spirit. After reading all this information and then hearing some of the good things and then also some of the bad things with it, it makes you wonder truly if you ever go back to your, like, let's say your home later this evening, or let's say you go to someone else's home, if you wonder if this thing resides in that home itself. And I'm talking about this. You're looking at it here, very interesting picture, and the rest of the pictures will showcase how it looks as well, or variations of it. It's called the Domovoi, and it is apparently a protective house spirit that is primarily located in Russian homes. Nothing in terms of it, like, let's say, not being elsewhere, but at the same time that seems to be its predominance location. So let's go ahead and talk about all the information here associated with this house spirit. So what is this Domovoi? Well, essentially it's something that lives, a spirit if you will, within everyone's homes, especially within Russia or in parts of Slavic Europe. Basically any of those locations there, they can have this protective spirit living within them. And the way they come from, well, actually let's first talk about how they look. Typically, these spirits, whenever they're seen, although very rarely, and I'll highlight that here in a minute as well, but when they are seen, they are seen as being more masculine. They're smaller than your average human, but still humanoid. They have, in some cases, this wild, barbaric beard tied to their face. And then in other cases, not only that, but their entire body is outright covered in hair. But in those cases, when people see them, they still recognize them in some ways because they can take the appearance of something like, let's say, a past ancestor. So even though if, let's say, you've never met your great-great-grandfather, you can still see some link between how that, in this case, Domovoi, that looks like the great-great-grandfather looks, and compared to yourself, because there's still that genetic link between the two of y'all. But still, that is a loose link because this thing can take or change its appearance outright. It's a spirit, so it can alter its appearance however it would like, but for the most part, it seems to take the appearance of past ancestors or past people that have lived within that home, former owners, if you will. They also sometimes have a gray beard associated with them, since again they're mostly masculine. And as an added touch, I guess this makes it more on the entity side, it can have tails or sometimes little bitty horns on the top of its head. Not really denoting like it's bad per se, but more than the lines it's just another characteristics that it happens to have. And in some cases, when people see them, they also take on the appearances of cats and or dogs. Remember, like I mentioned earlier, it can change its appearance to look like anything. So in some situations, this Domovoi, if needed, it can alter its appearance and then become a cat or a dog. Not that the cat or dog is alive, but it simply is, in that case, the presence of a Domovoi. And the reason why it lives within these homes is because it's a former owner of the home or former inhabitant or former ancestor. It's there to basically ensure that whoever lives there is in a good place, in a good situation. So it can bring very good luck, in other words, with regards to the house, the family, whoever's living there outright. And where you can find these Domovoi, because initially you cannot see them, but if you truly wanted to know where its domain is within any of these Russian homes, either A, head to the stove, or B, go to something called the threshold, or C, if there happens to be a cattle shed or stables within, let's say, the property of the home, then that's where this Domovoi lives there as well. And then also, if there's none of the above, or it's very limited, or the unique situation, the layout of the home makes it be a little bit harder. Then otherwise the center of the home, that's the main location that can be its domain, which is kind of creepy but cool at the same time when you think about it, because if you're walking across, let's say, the center of the living room and you don't know it, you may be just walking across a Domovoi. There it is, just staring at you, looking at you, smiling at you, like in a good sense, and you don't realize that you've just passed it. So because again, they're not generally seen, they're not smelled, they're not felt. It's very, very hard to discern their existence except on some unique situations. And for the most part, these Domovoi, all they want to do is they want to maintain peace and order, bring goodwill, bring rewards to the household that it is assigned to. It reminds me much of the Genius Loci, because some of those are good Genius Loci. Anyone that comes across it, they try to influence people in a good way, such as the case here with this Domovoi. And some of it involves helping with the household chores, making sure that the field work is done good, making sure, I guess, that for there's productive crops, making sure that there's not any kind of, I don't know, violence, abuse, whatever is the case happening within the home. This Domovoi, because it seems to be almost trapped within that location, it in turn wants to make sure that things are on a good basis. It's peaceful. It doesn't want any kind of conflict. The only thing it asks for, or the only thing it seems that the people there in Russia acknowledge as something that it likes, is as long as you can leave it gifts, such as milk, such as bread, such as salt, and in some curious cases even tobacco, then this satisfies the Domovoi. This makes it happy. It realizes it's being respected, and then that way it continues to bring peace and prosperity towards them. Some good signs too that you happen to have a Domovoi in your home and things are going very well is if you hear disembodied voices, in this case laughing, singing, telling jokes, or you hear the pitter-patter, I guess, of dancing happening within the home, then you'll know that there is a Domovoi there. And also, if they happen to I guess, utilize a comb and strum it through someone's hair, that is a very good sign. That indicates that there's going to be a wedding in the future. Somehow this Domovoi knows exactly what's going to happen, and they're letting whoever that person is know that they're going to be married soon. So all very, very good stuff. And I guess the ultimate thing is, whenever it makes its presence known, if you feel something like a hand on your shoulder, on your arm, and it feels warm, then that means the Domovoi is happy. Like it is giving you good fortune, and it is indicating as such by, in this case, a warm hand. Now, as far as the bad situations with this Domovoi, things can turn 180 degrees. If it happens to be, let's say, stuck in a house that is encountering bad things, let's say family abuse, let's say just outright discord, just bad things happening there, or it in turn is feeling disrespected, or it doesn't have, in this case, like the family there acknowledging truly its presence or offering any good things to it, then it in turn takes on more characteristics involving a poltergeist. So maybe this is their version, in this case the Russians' version of a poltergeist, because it seems like when this happens, they in turn can create some kind of catastrophe within the home. It involves, I guess, knocking things around, making bad noises. Like in this case, if you hear wails happening at night, like something crying, then that means that a Domovoi is not happy with what's going on there. Also, if people encounter bruises, let's say from the night, like they feel something pinching them hard enough, in other words, to create some kind of bruising, then that also means that there's going to be that there's Domovoi there, but they are not at all happy or pleased with what's occurring there. And then finally, I guess the worst thing possible is, remember I was mentioning about himself making their hands presence, like in other words, you feel it, you see it, yes, you feel it, and at least it feels warm. That's good. In this case though, if you have something like that felt and it is cold, ice cold, then that means there's going to be some really, really bad misfortune, maybe even death, that'll happen within them. And the ultimate harbinger of doom is if you have this Domovoi, in this case, make themselves visible. Remember I was mentioning earlier, this is like the worst thing possible, very, very rare, and the reason for it is because it's the worst thing possible. Then that means that someone will die within the household with absolute certainty. It's a harbinger of doom. Somebody will die if you see this Domovoi in person. That's why you don't want to see this thing completely. It'll only make his presence known when that situation happens. So, but that's it. That's really all the information tied to this ghost slash spirit of the week. Very, very fascinating suggestion. It was great to read a variation, in this case, of our own ghost spirits, poltergeist here in the U.S., but in that case, taking on more direct link to the households. You know how here in the U.S., it's all about people moving into a new home. Everything is great. Everything is sunshine at the beginning, but then something starts making its presence known and things turn dark, things turns nasty later on. Here in this case, at least in these Russian homes, there seemed to be more of a direct link because of this being either something involving an ancient ancestor or a previous owner, still linked to the people that are there now. So that makes it far more interesting, far more of a, I guess, emotional link when it comes to that. If anyone has any more information, that would be really great to hear. Anybody that has lived there in Russia in the past, anyone have family members that live there, anyone know of, I guess, these protective spirits that happen to be within these households? There's got to be a situation where it's something on the lines where people know about it and they talk about it. Maybe some don't believe it, but at least they know of the legend. If so, that would be really great to hear. Please post those comments below. To me, the best I guess the best info that I read was the fact that if you wanted to go into these Russian homes and you wanted to give yourself, let's say, a chance to be within its presence, just go to those areas that it's known to harbor. Either A, go to the stove, go on the threshold, go to the cattle shed stable, or if there's none of the above, then try to go to the center of the home, and you could be right there in the presence of this Domovoi. So very, very interesting stuff. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.